Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Big Ideas in Education. I am Dr. Sarah Boulos-Fye from Somerset Academy Schools, joined, of course, by my co-host Ryan Kairalla of Doral College. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be chatting with you.
It is great to be chatting with you as well. I'm going to have to apologize in advance to anybody who is watching us, as I will be muting myself several times to cough and sneeze. I am getting over a little bit of an illness here, and I am excited to be here nonetheless. Ryan, what do you have for us today?
Well, we appreciate you playing hurt, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks.
Continuing to bring us the inspiration and innovation in our schools. So, Sarah, with the end of the school year fast approaching, the folks over at Ed Week recently asked educators on social media for one-sentence pieces of advice to help all of us be at our best and to have the right mindset in these last few weeks. Many of these bite-sized tips focused on treasuring these final days of the year, as we saw quotes like, savor the time you have left with your students, stay in the moment, take time to enjoy your students and the magic of the classroom instead of only pressing to the finish line, make the days count while counting the days. I like that. Other tips focused on taking stock of the big impact you are making as an educator, even if that impact can be hard to see sometimes. Quote, the hardest to love are the ones that need it the most. They'll know you were the difference years from now. Teachers, tell yourself, I make a difference even when it doesn't seem like it. Look how far your students have come since September. We are part of that growth. And here are just a couple more magical quotes from these teachers on social media to close things out. Quote, you are the reason that someone looks forward to Monday mornings. Be the hope, the light, the pure joy and excitement that students see every time they enter your classroom. And I think my personal favorite here, Sarah, witnessing your senior students walk across the stage to receive their diplomas will remind you of the reason you became a teacher in the first place. By the way, that's why I never miss a commencement for that exact reason. And so
I never forget the tissues because I'm always the one who cries at least 3 times at a graduation.
That's got to be a sight to see. And, you know, I would imagine that as a veteran teacher like you are, Sarah, you were probably the one more on the giving end of this kind of advice to the younger teachers as they finish up the year strong. Do you have any parting advice that you like to share to educators when we get to the final weeks?
I don't know that I've specifically given advice for the final weeks, but I will say that I think there are kind of different phases when you get to the end of the school year. So there's this like really difficult period between spring break and maybe final exams if you're in a secondary classroom, where it is very difficult to get a lot of focus back on, right? People are very stressed out. I remember there was one year that I was working with another educator who was helping to track discipline. And the longer we went without a break, the higher the referral rate was, right? The discipline rate was. And so the question was asked, is it that the students are misbehaving more, or has we've just lost our patience with the students at this point in the year? So I'll be honest, it's not easy at that point of the year. Most of the students feel, especially if they've had like state exams or if they've had AP tests or things like that, they may feel like, well, we've done what we need to do for the year, right? So what is the point of class? And that can be really tough on a teacher to make the relevance of what is still happening in the classroom be there. And then I think there's a point at which that flips dramatically, where maybe exams are over and you're kind of getting to the end of the year and the tension shifts dramatically, right? And that pressure of exams is off of our shoulders. And all of a sudden, that race to the end of the school year kind of feels like nostalgia and everybody's loving each other. And how did I ever get frustrated with these kids? I love them so much. I hope I get them next year, right? So it's kind of like reminds me of a scene in I want to say it was like How I Met Your Mother, where like when you put those like nostalgia glasses on and you can hear the I will remember you, right? Everybody's just loving each other. So it's like, hold on, because that switch is gonna flip real quick, and all of a sudden you're going to forget all of those reasons why you were frustrated with each other. And at that point, the advice I usually give is there's probably still some important things that you need to do together as a class. There's probably still some important things that need to happen. Let's not all turn the nostalgia glasses on and just relax. I mean, relaxing is not a bad thing. We probably all need to relax more often. But there's probably some really important things that we can accomplish at that point in the year. And I really like to do some conversations with the future teacher. If you have students who are going to the next grade level or next step, what are some important things that they need to do or know to get ready for that year? I also think it's a really great time of the year for reflection. And I like to do surveys with my students and ask, what are some things that worked for you this year? What are some things that did not work for you? So that we can make sure that I can make sure as the educator that I pay attention to that, and that maybe my students are not responding to that the way that I thought they would. And it's because a lot of us are putting those nostalgia goggles on, that might make their survey results a little nicer than they would have been right before exams, right? But it's a bit more palatable at that point in the year too.
Those were two terrific takeaways there at the end, Sarah, that I've never considered, that I think were just great action items for teachers as we wrap up the school year here. One, as you said, is communicate to that kid's next teacher. Let them know, what works with this student, what doesn't work with this student. It's a great opportunity to allow next year's teacher to start off on the right foot based on the information that you can impart to them from the prior year. That's a great way to finish the year strong. And what you mentioned there at the end about getting feedback from your students at the end of the year, that's certainly valuable, because that's going to help you with your next crop of students. Those to me are two really terrific action items to really make the most of those final years. I feel like you could have thrown in a couple good quotes here into this Ed Week request for advice.
They didn't ask me. I don't know what to tell you.
What were they thinking? They missed out. All right, Sarah, you came with some pretty cool material. I think you have an audio-visual aid this week, which is always fun to see. Tell us what story you got.
All right. So I feel like a lot of what we're hearing right now about the use of AI in schools is mostly in the terrifying range, right? Of students are cheating. How is this going to make teachers' lives even more stressful? So I, for one, was pleasantly surprised to find that teachers can be using chatbots themselves, chatbots like ChatGPT, to help them by developing assessments. For example, ChatGPT can assist teachers in generating a variety of assessment questions by providing a range of prompts and topic-specific content. Also, teachers could use ChatGPT to get ideas for creating open-ended questions that allow students to demonstrate their understanding in their own words. It can help teachers create assessments that are more engaging and interactive, such as using chatbots for formative assessments, quizzes, or gamified assessments, which is not something I had thought of before. Lastly, teachers can use ChatGPT to assess student work through automated scoring or feedback, freeing up time for teachers to focus on providing more personalized instruction. Overall, chatbots like ChatGPT provide teachers with a useful tool to develop assessments that are more effective, engaging, and efficient, allowing for better student learning outcomes. And that's not just my opinion. I took a page out of Ryan's book and had the chatbot summarize those points for me. I was inspired.
Wow, all right.
Yeah, I was inspired to look into this after seeing K-12 instructional coach Carly Delo's TikTok on the subject. Ryan, can you play that for us?
Did you hear the news? Teachers now have access to their very own personal assistant. Here are 5 ways you can save time with ChatGPT. Generate real-world examples for any standard. I put in a high school chemistry standard and asked for 3 real-world examples. I can use these to think of demos, a driving question for the unit, or I can use this as a starting point to create an engaging lesson. We all know how much time it takes to write high-quality assessment questions. Instead of doing this on my own, I input the standard, the depth of knowledge at which I would like it assessed, and asked for a 4-point rubric. I was pretty blown away. This would be a great starting point. Differentiation is important, but it takes so much time. Thanks to ChatGPT, I was able to generate a passage about photosynthesis, including very specific learning targets at a 4th grade reading level. I also requested 3 comprehension questions with an answer key. This one's for all of the math teachers out there. I input a very specific standard for 3rd grade students and asked ChatGPT to generate 3 different story problems, including an answer key. A great low-stakes way for students to apply their learning is analyzing student work. Here, I asked for 3 6th grade student examples of hooks for a persuasive essay about whether or not students should be able to have their cell phones in school or not. I requested a high quality, low quality, and medium quality example for students to analyze. Love it or hate it, this is the future. Take back your evenings and weekends. What creative ideas do you have for saving time with ChatGPT? Let me know in the comments. Follow for more.
Sorry, I muted myself so I wouldn't cough on everybody, and then it went silent. So
No problem.
sorry about that. So I could kind of see your face, Ryan, as we were going through that you were like, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought
I was
of that.
furiously taking notes. You couldn't
Right?
see my hands in the camera, but just, that's a good one. Yeah. And we should mention that's Coach Carly, coach at Coach Karle on TikTok.
Yes, and we'll definitely link her information in the description of the show. But I was really excited to see that. I'll be honest, I know that there are a lot of implications that, and I'm sure, as an attorney, you have like, okay, so who owns this and that? And I'm sure you've got a lot of things going off in your head. But just as a classroom teacher and as an instructional coach, I'm thinking, wow, this is an incredible way to help us develop assessments for our students. And I think that we can use this to benefit us. I cannot tell you the amount of time, hours of my life that have been spent vetting, searching, looking through assessments as someone who considers themselves very careful when it comes to assessment and wanting to really provide valid and reliable assessments for my students and any school that I go into. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of energy. And there have been schools where I'll go in and I'll talk to the teachers and they're really frustrated with something. And so they will go to Teachers Pay Teachers and they'll purchase like a 4th grade math assessment pack because they need support and the textbook that they have is not getting to their students the way they need to. And not to knock Teachers Pay Teachers, I put my own things on Teachers Pay Teachers sometimes just to offer free resources to other teachers because I was like, this took me 20 minutes to make. I bet I could save somebody else 20 minutes. But the truth is those are not always vetted in the way that maybe my standard of vetting would be. So to have those presented already in a way that I could, okay, let me read this. Let me go through it. Is this actually hitting the standard I need? It is fantastic. It gives me a jumping off point. I think for a lot of us, and I'll speak for myself, but I do think that I'm not the only one. For a lot of us as educators, we often let perfect get in the way of good, right? And what that means, and somebody said that to me once, and I was like, I don't know what you mean. But as a little bit of a perfectionist, sometimes we want to
teachers letting perfect be the enemy of the good. Come on, not the most perfectionist profession that's ever existed.
I know. I was surprised to hear it as well. Don't think of myself that way, but apparently it's true. A lot of us, myself included, will think I have to make this from scratch. I have to do this the right way, or it's not going to be enough for my students, or it's not going to be the right level of assessment. It's not going to prepare them for what they're going to see on the state exam, or I have to differentiate for the student. The textbook wasn't working, so I have to make everything for them. That is not only exhausting, it is not sustainable, right? So that's not a sustainable way to be because you are sacrificing your mental health, you're sacrificing your personal time. And no wonder we see teachers who are completely burned out and leaving the profession. So I personally am going to challenge myself to think of ways that I could use these assessments and these chatbots to make my life easier as step one. And as I learn more, I can talk to my students better about when it's appropriate to use these AI assistants and when it is not. And as someone who cares a lot about assessment, does it terrify me that so many learners can use artificial intelligence to artificially respond to assessment questions and make me believe that they have learned something or mastered content that they have not? Yes, I do. I'll be honest. I do find that terrifying. And so the best way that I can do this is not stick my head in the sand, stick my fingers in my ear, and act like it's not here. It's to learn how and when to use these things, how to better understand my students and help be in the next wave of assessment and understanding. And that's where we are.
It's exciting. It's sort of slightly off topic, but I did see a tweet recently speaking to the idea of our fear of ChatGPT creating issues with students. I saw a tweet where a teacher wrote that a student submitted a paper about Twelfth Night and analyzing the Shakespearean play Twelfth Night, and they showed the student's paper, and the first paragraph of the student's essay was a ChatGPT prompt saying, as an AI-generated chatbot, I cannot do your assignment for you, but here are some thoughts that you can use to help. And then it wrote the essay.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, obviously, sometimes it's easier to catch students in some cases than others when they use, ChatGPT to plagiarize. But I can be cognizant of the academic integrity dangers that we see with ChatGPT, while also seeing the value it's going to create for educators and allowing educators to then bring that value to the students by giving them more assessments, more practice, and freeing up more time in your day as a teacher so that you can devote more time to direct instruction and enriching the lives of your students. I've started using it a little bit with some of my assignments. I use it. I still create a lot of my own assessments because I think, especially with law, which is what I teach a lot of, ChatGPT still got a ways to go before it can, generate a effective legal question the way that a lawyer can. But what I often do is after I create my law essay question, I will test ChatGPT and have it try to answer it. And it's a sort of a way to kind of workshop and focus group my question. I see where the ChatGPT gets tripped up, and then I can figure out why it got tripped up. Was there a flaw in the way that I wrote the question? Is there a way I could make it more clear? And that allows me to provide a more effective answer to my students. At the K-12 level, we're seeing some really cool stuff happening in the ed tech space where we're seeing AI platforms being developed that can automatically generate writing test questions that are already tied to the state standards, that already have the rubric in there. And oftentimes we're seeing AI can provide a quick and dirty grading rubric of an essay using the state standards. I've even seen some people who will have AI generate a essay prompt under the state standards, have AI write the essay, and then have AI grade the essay. And sometimes, if you can believe it, the AI grader does not give the AI-generated essay 100%. So sometimes even AI doesn't get it perfect. And it's really cool to see all that come together. And I think there is a lot to be excited about in terms of this freeing up teachers' time and allowing them to devote more time to the things that they want to do with their students, and rather than just spending most of their time writing assessments.
I agree. And so I'd love to see the conversation shift a little bit towards how can we use this to help educators do their job and help them to feel more confident in what they do in the classroom. And I think that what we have to remember is any use of technology, anything that we're bringing into the classroom, especially as administrators, is this should be making the teachers' ability to spend time with their students easier, right? This should be providing them more opportunity for, I've heard people call it golden time, right? For teachers to be spending time with their students, whether in small groups or one-on-one or whatever it is. The more we can use these resources to help teachers be with their students in more authentic and there's no other way for it, genuine ways, that's the best use of this technology. So
Right.
I'm curious to hear what you all have to say about this. What have you been using these for? what ideas do you have? What TikTokers should we be following? Because they've got some great teacher hacks. What teacher talks? I think that's what the kids would be saying if I were a kid. And now everybody's going to make fun of me because that's definitely not what they would say. But please feel free to reach out to us using the hashtag BigIdeasInEducation. We love hearing from you, and we love learning what you're learning about. Have a wonderful week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.